Imagine you wake up tomorrow and every song, every movie, every book, every piece of art ever created is suddenly completely free. Free to copy, free to sell, free to claim as your own. Sounds like a utopia, right? What if copyright laws just didn't exist? No patents on music, no ownership of stories, no legal protection for anything anyone ever created. Most people hear that and think, great, free Netflix forever. But the reality is so much darker, so much stranger, and so much more fascinating than that. Because what actually happens when creativity has no protection isn't freedom. It's something nobody saw coming. Stay with us, because this scenario goes places that will permanently change how you think about art, money, and human nature itself. The first thing that collapses isn't what you'd expect. It's not art, it's not music, it's not movies. It's the money behind them. The moment copyright disappears, the entire economic engine that funds creative work shuts down almost instantly. Think about it this way. Copyright law is basically a promise. It says you created something. For a limited time, you control it. You can sell it. You can profit from it. Remove that promise and you remove the incentive for anyone with serious money to fund creative projects. A major film studio doesn't spend $200 million on a movie because they love storytelling. They spend it because copyright law guarantees they can recoup that investment by controlling who distributes it. Without copyright, any competitor can legally copy that film the moment it releases, undercut the price to zero, and the studio gets nothing. So within the first hours of a world without copyright, the first phone calls being made are between studio executives, record label CEOs, and publishing house lawyers, all asking the same terrifying question: why are we still investing in this? The global creative economy is worth over $2.25 trillion annually, a figure equivalent to the GDP of entire countries like Italy, Russia, or Canada, countries with the world's top 10 economies. That entire economic structure depends almost entirely on copyright protection existing. Without it, that $2.25 trillion machine starts breaking down before the end of day one. The interesting truth is, this game isn't all about failure. Amidst the chaos, there are still those who reach glory in unexpected ways. The biggest tech platforms on Earth, the ones that host content, would explode overnight. Spotify, YouTube, Netflix, Amazon. Suddenly, they owe nothing to the creators whose work fills their platforms. No licensing fees, no royalty payments, no legal battles. They just take everything, legally. And because they can now offer every song, every movie, every book completely free, their user base will skyrocket in a few days. This is exactly the kind of scenario that sounds like a win for consumers, until you follow the consequences one step further. Because now those platforms have something incredibly dangerous: total control over culture with zero obligation to the people who created it. The creators themselves, most of them are already gone by week one. A musician who spent 3 years writing an album wakes up to find every major streaming service offering it for free, legally, and there's nothing they can do about it. A novelist whose book took 5 years of their life watches it get copied, repackaged, and resold under someone else's name, completely legally. The ones who disappear first are the mid-level creators, not the massive superstars, we'll get to them in a moment, and not the hobbyists who create for passion alone. It's the professional middle class of creativity that evaporates first. The working musicians, the independent authors, the screenwriters, the photographers. Within weeks, the creative workforce as we know it essentially ceases to exist as a profession. Now, you might be thinking, but people created art for thousands of years before copyright law existed. Artists survived. And you're right.
that's exactly where the surprising twist hits, because here's what history actually shows us, and it's uncomfortable. Before modern copyright, the dominant model for supporting artists was patronage. Wealthy individuals, governments, or religious institutions funded artists directly in exchange for exclusive access or public prestige. Michelangelo didn't own the Sistine Chapel. Pope Julius II commissioned it. Michelangelo was essentially a hired hand. Mozart, arguably the greatest musical genius in human history, died broke at 35 in a world with no copyright protection for composers. Bach spent his entire career producing music owned by the church or local nobility.
The golden age of art that people romanticize was actually an age where artists were almost universally dependent on powerful patrons and had almost no economic autonomy. Without copyright, we would find no creative haven. Instead, humanity would fall into a reality where art is merely a playground for the wealthiest. It was a system where powerful institutions decided what got made, what got seen, and what got remembered. And that brings us to something we haven't talked about yet. If you're finding this genuinely fascinating, and we think you are, this is the perfect moment to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon. We explore scenarios exactly like this every single week, built on real science and real history, not guesswork. Now, where were we? A world without copyright doesn't just reshape the economics of creativity. Over months and years, it reshapes culture itself at a fundamental level. Here's what happens in the long term, and this is the part that goes completely off the rails in the best possible way. With no copyright protection, the concept of a definitive version of any creative work stops existing. Right now, when you listen to a song, there's one official version, one master recording, one canonical release. In a world without copyright, the moment any piece of work enters the world, it immediately begins fragmenting into hundreds, then thousands of competing versions. From artists to tech corporations, everyone is engaged in a race, reshaping, restructuring, and repackaging every piece of culture to serve commercial goals. At first, this sounds amazing. Infinite remixes, infinite interpretations, complete creative freedom. But here's what actually happens, and there's a real-world example that shows this perfectly. In the United States, before the Copyright Act of 1831 extended protection to books, American publishers routinely reprinted British novels without paying the authors anything. Charles Dickens, one of the most famous writers in history, made almost no money from American sales of his books, despite his massive popularity there. He visited America in 1842 specifically to argue for international copyright protection, and he was furious. His work was being sold everywhere, he was famous everywhere, and he was getting paid almost nowhere. Now scale that dynamic to the entire global creative economy in the modern world. Every major song released by an independent artist gets immediately copied by larger corporations with better distribution networks. The original creator who had the idea, spent the time, took the financial risk, gets pushed out of their own market by entities that simply have more resources to replicate and distribute. This is why, in the long run, a world without copyright doesn't produce more creativity. Studies on patent protection, which function similarly to copyright but for inventions, consistently show that removing IP, intellectual property protection, doesn't increase innovation. It concentrates it. It moves creative power toward whoever already has the infrastructure to produce and distribute at scale. Which means, in a world without copyright, the most powerful creative forces on the planet wouldn't be individual artists or even studios. They'd be the tech platforms. Google, Amazon, Apple, Meta. These companies already have the servers, the algorithms, the distribution networks, and the user bases. Without copyright forcing them to pay creators, they don't just host culture, they own it.
every song, every story, every film, every image. Not legally owned, but practically owned, because they control how it reaches people.
And here's the jaw-dropping long-term reality. Within a generation, the idea of authorship itself would begin to fade. When nothing is protected, nothing is definitively yours. And when nothing is definitively yours, the psychological motivation to create something truly personal starts to erode. Why spend 5 years crafting something extraordinary when it will be legally stolen and repackaged by a corporation the same day it's released? The answer, historically, is most people don't. What fills the gap instead is something we already see the early signs of today: algorithmically generated content optimized for engagement rather than meaning. Content designed not to express something true about human experience, but to keep you watching for 30 more seconds. In a world without copyright, that content wins because it can be produced infinitely, instantly, and cheaply. And the slow, difficult, painful work of genuine human creativity gets economically outcompeted into near extinction. There's one more dimension to this that almost nobody talks about: cultural preservation. Right now, copyright law, specifically the protections it grants to estates and archives, is one of the primary reasons cultural institutions invest in preserving old works. Museums fund restoration projects. Labels restore old recordings. Publishers maintain archives because those works have economic value, protected by copyright. Remove that protection, and the financial incentive to preserve old culture disappears almost entirely. Within decades, vast portions of our cultural heritage would degrade, get lost, or simply stop being maintained. The Library of Congress currently holds over 170 million items. A massive percentage of those items are preserved because their protected status gives them institutional and economic value. In a world without copyright, many of those resources redirect elsewhere, and the story of humanity, told through its art, its music, its literature, starts developing holes, permanent, irreversible holes. So here's what this scenario actually reveals. Copyright law isn't just a legal technicality or a tool for corporations to make money, though it's definitely that too. It's a social contract between society and its creators. It says, we will give you a limited monopoly on your work, and in return, you will take the risk of creating it. Remove that contract, and you don't unleash creativity, you unleash the raw power of capital. And capital, left unchecked, doesn't fund art, it consumes it. Remember where we started, the idea of waking up to a world where everything is free. We've been through that world now, and we know what free actually costs. It costs the people who create. It costs the diversity of voices. It costs the cultural record of humanity itself. We're Alterverse. We ask the questions nobody else takes seriously enough to answer. Subscribe, and your next obsession is one click away.